Donald Trump decided to gamble that a U.S. blockade of the Strait of Hormuz would be worth all of its economic and military, diplomatic, and security risk to try to put some pressure on Iran. But already there are signs of trouble. According to the Wall Street Journal, Arab officials say Saudi Arabia is pressing the United States to drop its blockade and return to the negotiating table, fearing Trump's move to close it off could lead Iran to escalate and disrupt other important shipping routes. Meanwhile, the blockade isn't even working to prevent Iran from crossing the Strait of Hormuz because, again, as the Wall Street Journal is reporting, quote, Iran is using a shadow fleet of ships that employ various methods to avoid detection. Meanwhile, our colleague Jackie Alemany has some brand new reporting on negotiations over the weekend and how little the needle has budged 7 weeks into the war. A senior administration official telling us that Iran rejected the 20-year proposal put forth by the United States to suspend all nuclear activity and countered with a 3-year proposal similar to what Iranian negotiators proposed in Geneva in February before Donald Trump decided to go to war with Iran in the first place. I want to bring in former Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman. She led the United States negotiating team that successfully reached an agreement on the Iran nuclear deal in 2015. Thank you so much for being here.
Good to be with you, Nicole.
What, if you could just sort of tell me what worries you most? What keeps you up at night right now?
Oh, my goodness, the list is pretty long. But I would say two things. One, that the Trump administration doesn't realize they could get a deal, but it means actually digging in, bringing experts, putting in the time, putting in the work. It's really quite crucial. The second thing, maybe there are three things. The second thing in terms of the blockade is exactly what the Saudis ostensibly are worried about, which is if this goes on for a while, Iran will feel it has to take some action rather than just suffering more economic harm, which was Trump's intention here, was to create an economic cost for Iran. And if Iran feels like it's getting too tough, they will attack our allies and partners. They will get the Houthis to close down the port in the Red Sea. That's what the Saudis are worried about. And this shadow fleet, as you point out, is really getting around all of this anyway. And then the third thing, and probably in some ways perhaps the most profound, is the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is now in full control in Iran. The people I call the hardliners now really control everything. And as a result, at some point, they may decide that they must have a nuclear weapon to deter us and others from attacking them again. And if they decide to get a nuclear weapon, then so will several other countries. I won't name them, but you can probably guess who they are. Several other countries will want to get a nuclear weapon, and we'll be in a real bad place.
And what impact, if any, does Donald Trump's publicly stated threat to annihilate their civilization have on their grip on power?
I think it probably astonished even those that really hate the regime. This all began because the president said he would have the back of the protesters who were being slaughtered in the streets. That sort of has gone by the wayside. Everybody's forgotten about Iranians who are looking for freedom. And to say we're going to wipe out their civilization, for those protesters, they are Iranian. They believe in the many, 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 many hundreds of years of their civilization and of their theology. And even though they hate this regime, they still love that they are Iranian. And they want to preserve that. So it did not help. And of course, it said to the rest of the world that the President of the United States, even by saying it, was committing a war crime.
What does the world see right now when it looks to America?
I think the world is not sure what they're supposed to do. The president did not consult any of the allies and partners, and then he castigated them for not helping him out, but saying he didn't need to help them. So it's a little whack-a-mole going on. in terms of where you land, where you are. I think what it means is our European allies are trying to plot their own course. It means China is certainly plotting its own course. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens here, because the president is due to go to China in May, as we all know. But if this blockade prevents China from getting the oil it needs, it may help Iran out even more. Now, I read a report today that UAE has gone to China to try to get China to put pressure on Iran to end this nightmare, but they didn't choose this war. The United States of America chose this war, and that puts us in a very strange position with the rest of the world. We've tanked the global economy. The price of oil is not decided by how much oil the United States has. We have a lot. It's determined by the world oil market, and therefore American taxpayers pay the price as well as the rest of the world.
It's so amazing. I mean, we sort of got to this at the end. It seems to be the only indicator, not threatening war crimes, not alienating our allies, not suggesting ineffective or impotent measures to, put off our adversaries. It's the last point you just made. It's the instability in the global markets and its impact on the U.S. economy seems to be the only measure that even registers with Donald Trump. What does that mean to the world?
Well, many people have said that this is really about munitions, markets, and midterms. Munitions in terms of what's this doing to our defense capability, to the weapons we may need if there is another conflict, to the cost to our taxpayers, to the lives, the 13 soldiers who have died, and what it means to everyday Americans in terms of costs to our farmers who can't get fertilizer except at a high price. Yeah. Markets, the president certainly pays attention to what happens to the stock market and how he's doing. I'm not sure he cares about polls because, as you've pointed out, they're pretty bad. And midterms, which certainly are having an impact as more and more races are seeing to sort of trend toward Democrats. And once the House is controlled by Democrats, that's going to create some accountability for President Trump. He operates in a totally different world than the last 50 years of the international rules-based order. And the world is trying to figure out whether they can survive in the world in which he operates. The good news is Hungarians just decided that that kind of an autocratic approach that Viktor Orban demonstrated is not what they want to hold on to their democracy. Yeah. And as your last panel discussed, that's what we all have to decide.